The sudden way the president announced his willingness to meet with the rogue regime means that all the complicated details normally worked out behind the scenes are still to be figured out. There is risk. Will the meeting happen? There is risk. Will it produce what the U.S. wants? President Trump is saying it's on track.
The president tweeted his enthusiasm about a face-to-face meeting with Kim Jong Un. The deal with North Korea is very much in the making and will be, if completed, a very good one for the world. The president's evening tweet followed a press briefing that made the historic meeting sound less certain.
I'm simply saying that a time and place haven't yet been set.
Press Secretary Sarah Sanders also appeared to raise the stakes for an initial meeting with North Korea.
They've promised to denuclearize. We'd have to see concrete and verifiable actions take place.
However, senior administration officials insist there are no extra conditions that would force North Korea to first verify an end to its nuclear program, saying that would come later. The press secretary did manage to steer away from a controversial storm.
We've addressed this extensively, and I don't have anything else to add.
New developments in the case of Stormy Daniels, the adult film star who claimed she had an affair with Trump in 2006, which the president denies. NBC News obtained this email that shows lawyer Michael Cohen used his Trump Organization work email in a message related to payment of $130,000 to Daniels. Cohen told ABC News the money came from his home equity line of credit, distancing the deal from Trump. Daniels' attorney doesn't buy it.
Mr. Cohen wants the American people to believe that he was just out there doing all of this on his own and not reporting to anybody about it. It's not believable.
Today, the president hits the campaign trail, heading to Pennsylvania, where Democrats hope to take a Republican House seat. The president will headline a rally for Rick Saccone, whom he met in January.
Rick is a great guy. I think he's going to do really well. He's a great guy. He loves this area, loves this country.
So the president speaks tonight, and Joe Biden was there for Democrat Connor Lamb. Now, this is a part of Pennsylvania where President Trump did well in 2016. So he is risking something getting involved. Voters decide Tuesday who will replace this open seat. It has been Republican. It's an open seat. And Democrats think this is a good example to show their anti-Trump voter enthusiasm. Chanel? Craig?
Right. Kelly, thank you.
Philip Rucker is the White House bureau chief for the Washington Post. He's also an NBC News political analyst. Phil, it's always good to see you, sir.
Good morning.
Let's start a jam-packed week in Washington, as most of them are these days. But let's start with this unprecedented meeting between President Trump and North Korea's leader, Kim Jong Un. What's the calculation coming out of the White House? What are the risks?
Well, it's interesting. The risks are quite high. I mean, this is a meeting that U.S. presidents have not had with the North Korean dictator, in large part because it would put the North Korean dictator on equal footing with the American president. But President Trump is determined to do it. He wants to break the mold. He wants to do what his predecessors haven't done. And he has complete faith in his own charisma and his own ability to persuade the North Koreans.
Let's turn to the Stormy Daniels story at a time when there's just really so much going on. It seems like the White House just can't shake this story. It seems like every week there's a new development. How substantial of a distraction is this?
It's increasingly a distraction for the White House, in large part because the president and his team at the White House have not been forthcoming with information about the payments, about the scandal. They've, of course, denied the allegations in a broad sense. But Sarah Sanders, as we saw at the briefing, has not gotten into the details to explain whether President Trump knew about that payment and whether that money was originally his.
Let's talk about Pennsylvania here, Philip. We just heard from Kelly O'Donnell there at the end of her story. We've got the special congressional election on Tuesday. This is a district that the president won by 20 points. The Democratic candidate at last check was up by 4 points. How much of Tuesday is going to be a referendum on President Trump?
A lot of it, Craig. It comes a couple days after President Trump signed those new steel tariffs. This race is in steel country. It's the suburbs of Pittsburgh. It's going to be a referendum on that tariff. It's going to be a referendum on the presidency at this point, and there's a lot riding for the Republicans. It's one of the reasons why the Republicans have outspent the Democrats there 10-1, 10 million to a little under 1 million. So a lot is on the line as we look ahead to the midterms in November.
Phil Rucker for us on this Saturday morning. Phil, thank you.
Hello, Today fans. Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking that button down there and click on any of the videos over here. to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives.